Data Architecture in Azure with Jonathan Mills.
The Azure DevOps Podcast is a show for developers and DevOps professionals shipping software using Microsoft technologies. Each show brings you hard-hitting interviews with industry experts, innovating better methods, and sharing success stories. Listen on to learn how to increase quality, ship quickly, and operate well. And now your host, Jeffrey Palermo.
Welcome to the show. I'm Jeffrey Palermo, your humble host. Make sure to check out www.azuredevops.show for past episodes and show notes. And coming up, April 30th is the next .NET DevOps Bootcamp training in Austin, Texas. I'm excited to teach that. And I'm also excited that lots of people are taking me up for the offer of a complimentary, that is in free, 30-point DevOps inspection for your environment. It's helping a lot of people, so that's great. Now, today, I'm really excited about our guest today. I'm talking to Jonathan Mills, and Jonathan is a Pluralsight author, technology advisor, and business leader, and as a member of the multi-cloud team at Worldwide Technology, John's able to leverage his unique experiences and skills to drive cloud migrations for his clients. And as a dedicated developer community leader, Jonathan serves on the board of directors for the Kansas City Developer Conference, KCDC. He's also a Microsoft MVP and is a regular speaker and keynote presenter at conferences all around the globe and throughout the solar system. So, John, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on. How are you, sir?
I am doing very well. Thank you very much for having me. I'm always excited to be on and talk about anything that people want to listen to.
Awesome. Now, we have just a ton of stuff to talk about today, and you've been a longtime developer, and you run the Kansas City Developer Conference, and plenty of people have heard you speak, and all kinds of. But what has your journey been, and how did you? I mean, do you remember how you became a developer and how you got into your current role?
So I'm a little different than a lot of people. My grandmother. A lot of times people ask, like, how did you get into development? Like, the person that got me into development was my grandmother, nice. Which may seem weird to a lot of people. She worked at digital equipment. Back when I was very, very young. And so I had computers in her home and then in my home before. I'm old. So, like, we're talking the early 80s. And so computers are just something I grew up with. And so, and having her as a technology person, it always just kind of was assumed that I would end up going into technology. And so kind of fast forward through, I went to college and I started as a math major because I liked math. And our math, the college I went to, Georgia Southwestern, was on the quarter system. So my first quarter, I took Calculus 1, my second quarter, Calculus 2, my third quarter, Calculus 3, and realized I didn't want to do that for 3 more years. Because that's ridiculous. So the next semester or the next quarter of the next year, I was a computer science major because I didn't have to take math anymore. Right. But it has worked out beautifully. I wouldn't do something different for anything. Like, this is the best thing I can do.
Awesome. And there's a lot of people who have, but there's some people that have not heard about the Kansas City Developer Conference. So why don't you give us the gist on that? And it's coming up this summer.
It's coming up this summer. It's the very end of June. It's on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this year. So the Kansas City Developer Conference is in Kansas City. Obviously, this will be our 13th year, I think. And we started as kind of just a free code camp, just like everybody was about 10 or 15 years ago. And over those years, we've kind of grown. We are very focused on two things. Our mantra is always we want to bring the world into Kansas City. It's one thing for a user group where you talk about what a lot of other people here in town are doing, but we want to bring people from all over the world into our market to expose our developers and the developers in the region with a lot of different ideas and different ways of doing things at a very high level. But at the same time, we want the opposite idea. We want to show off our region to the world because we get people come in all the time. First of all, most people don't even know what state we're in because Kansas City. We are not in Kansas. We are in Missouri. And so we want to show off this region. There's a lot of really cool things that are going on here in town, and we have a lot of really talented people. And so we try and set up a platform for exposing what our region is capable of and what we do to everybody that comes in. We are last year we were just over 2,100 attendees. We run about 200 sessions. It's a madhouse. If you come, you'll meet people from 4 continents, just about every state. It's a great opportunity that we have, and it's very much. I don't take credit for any of it. There's 4 of us that run it, but it's very much a community-owned event. You'll run into speakers from Kansas City and St. Louis and Omaha, just about any event you go to all over the world, and they speak about KCDC as if it's their event that they own, and we love that because it gives us that community feel, and it's just a different vibe than what you'll get from a lot of other events. Now you were there a couple of years ago.
A year before last. Yep.
Nope.
Yeah, it was very well run, but just a lot of people. You think small regional conference. No, this is an international conference that happens to be in Missouri.
Yep. No, and that's right. And it's, the thing that I hear from everybody who comes into town is just how amazing the attendees are. And that's the one thing we have no control over, right? I have control over who speaks. I have control over who sponsors. We have no control over who shows up. But the people in the region, I would say the Midwest in general, even down to where you are in Austin, like they know what they don't know, and they want to learn. They are eager to hear other perspectives and other points of view, and they want to learn things, and that resonates through the whole tone of the event. And so speakers who come in always feel like this is they gave the best talk they've ever given because the attendees really want to hear what they have to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. And so just the lowdown, it's June 29th through July 1st, and our tickets still available? Or are they going to be sold out pretty soon?
Tickets are barely on sale. So they are on sale. I think we've sold 4 of them. They just went on sale like a couple of days ago. Early bird runs until about a month before the show. And so so buy them now if you can. Like it'll be a great show.
All right.
And it's kcdc.info.
Perfect. And I'm just looking. Got the website up here. It says.
Yep.
It says this is probably a typo from last year. Join us Sunday, June 28th. So
Sunday, June 28th. So this is another thing I love to talk about because this is awesome. Typically, it would have been Saturday the day after. This year, it's Sunday the day before. Because we have grown to where we are, we have some extra funds that we like to use. And so we run on Sunday a free kids conference. So anybody, elementary, early middle school, we pull in all of our speakers. We can get a lot of our speakers that are coming from all over the world, and they run coding workshops, just like we have a maker space, and we pull in 300 middle schoolers and elementary schoolers into the event to just expose them to technology. And we are able to do that completely free. It's a free event that's just put on by the Kansas City Developers Conference. It's run in conjunction with KC WIT, KC Women in Technology. Kansas City is spoiled when it comes to some of these nonprofit organizations that we have. But the Kansas City Women in Technology group, run by Jennifer Wadella, is phenomenal. And so they have helped us out the last several years. And we have an elementary school teacher, Sarah Phelps, who comes in from St. Louis, who oversees and runs the thing. So it's not just a bunch of developers who are trying to figure out how to do this. We have actual educators who are helping to put this thing on.
That's awesome. So for the kids, I'm looking at, he has makerspace with oozy slime, squishy circuits, robots, Legos, toppling boxes, and more.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I mean, we just buy a whole bunch of stuff and set these kids loose. And one of my favorite things is seeing, CTOs and Microsoft regional directors from all over the world sitting at a table with 7 and 8 year olds making slime. Right. I mean, it's awesome. And the speakers who come in just get a lot out of it. It's a fundamentally different thing than what they do on a regular basis. And so it's very encouraging to them to just spend some time with kids and help them get excited about technology.
Nice.
The Azure DevOps Podcast is sponsored by ClearMeasure, a software engineering firm and Microsoft Gold partner, empowering development teams to be their best. ClearMeasure equips developers with the DevOps tools, methods, and automation necessary to focus on building their applications, rather than wrestling with builds, deployments, or environments. Click clear-measure.com to see whether a DevOps implementation is for you.
Hey, this is Jeffrey. Do you ever wonder if your software project is on the right path? It's really common for software projects to experience delays, to have the quality not where it needs to be, or have the team spending more time maintaining the software than you really should. In my practice, we know the challenges implementing all parts of DevOps, and it can make your head spin how many things you have to think about, and somewhere in your gut, you know that something's missing. So I've created a comprehensive 30-point DevOps inspection, reviewing your current process, methods, tools, source control, build integration, the various levels of testing, provisioning and maintaining environments, deploying, logging, telemetry, everything you need to think about in a high throughput, high productivity DevOps environment. And it really helps you gain peace of mind knowing that you're on the right track. And we are offering some more of our really popular 30-point DevOps inspections, and it's normally a $5,000 value, but I'm giving it away for free for my podcast listeners. Just send me an email, jeffrey@clear-measure.com. That's Jeffrey. And I'd be happy to inspect your existing DevOps environment, whether you use Azure DevOps Services, Octopus Deploy, TeamCity, any number of tools, because there are a lot out there. But what's important is that you have a complete and automated DevOps environment put together the right way. So get a second pair of eyes. Send me an email. All right. So your day job, you work at a technology company serving lots and lots of firms as a cloud architect.
Yes.
And now, just for just all the different job titles, what the heck is a cloud architect these days? And what is it not?
Oh my goodness. So the term architect is like a horrifically bad term most of the time, right? Because it's very nebulous and it's different depending on who you're talking to always. Okay, so real quick, I'll give you the 30-second version of Worldwide Technology. Worldwide Technology is the biggest company nobody has ever heard of. So we're about an $11 billion hardware reseller company. So we build data centers. If you buy Cisco equipment, you probably buy it through Worldwide Technology. The Worldwide, as a hardware networking infrastructure shop, has started migrating into services and leveraging all those relationships they have with Microsoft and Amazon and all of those to build out what we consider a cloud center of excellence. And that is not beholden to a specific partner, because the reality is all of the different clouds have things they're really good at. They have things they're not so great at, and so we're kind of that disinterested third party that helps you figure out the right place to be. Because every once in a while, Google Cloud's like actually really an option for you, right? So my focus is exclusively on the Azure side. So what I help people do is evaluate their current state, understand their business needs, understand their technology needs, and then help them identify the right path to migrate to the cloud. And so as an architect, where the architect piece, I'm air quoting that you can't see, where the architect piece comes in, it's I'm going to help lay out, here's the Azure services you need, here's the way you're going to lay all this out, here's the best way to secure and limit spend, and those types of things that freak people out when it comes to the cloud. Spending and security are the two things that I hear about more than anything. And then as we lay all that out, then we use a delivery partner that's still internal to Worldwide to actually go and do the implementation. So to me, an architect is somebody who can understand the business needs, understand the technology needs, articulate that clearly and efficiently to another group of people who are going to deliver in a way that they actually will deliver it. Oftentimes, there's a pretty big disconnect between the architect and the delivery team, and that's where architects get a bad name.
Gotcha. Now, you've been doing a lot of work in the Azure Data Services.
Yep.
And that's a really big area of confusion. Just all the different ways that you can store data in Azure, and then the choice dimensions, how to choose which and which one is aimed for. So what are the common categories that you're finding?
Okay, so typically for us, the challenge that a lot of enterprises who come to us have are they've kind of grown over time, right? And so they've cobbled together a whole bunch of disparate systems. You've got a CRM system, or you've got an implementation system, or a sales system, or all of these different things, and their data exists in all these different places. And so typically what the last several clients I've had are tied back to that mentality of how do I get all my data in one place? And there are a lot of options, right? So SQL, you've got Azure SQL, you've got Cosmos DB, you've got Data Lake, you've got Databricks, you've got Data Factory, like there's all of it. So what I like to do is one, understand what their needs are, right? So in the case of a client I'm working on right now, we use Data Factory. And Data Factory is an ingestion system, right? So it's going to go and it's going to pull data. We'll do a little bit of data transformation, and then we're going to store it in a data lake kind of as it is. And then Data Factory again on the backside to pull everything out of the data lake now that it's there and aggregate it down to what they need. And that's going to come back to business requirements.
So this is sounding like ETL. The old ETL.
Yeah, well, but we don't like to call it ETL because ETL sounds boring. When you use words like Data Factory and Data Lakes, all of a sudden now it sounds interesting.
Hold on, let me just get this straight. So are we doing any kind of process where we're extracting data from a particular source?
Yes.
Okay, are we doing any kind of transformation of that data
Absolutely,
as it moves along? And would we happen to be loading any data?
We're loading data into another thing, right?
Just make sure I'm clear.
It's just it's a cooler way to reference it, though.
Well, no, this helps because we got all these buzzwords and people are like, what should I choose? And we got to simplify this.
Right, and that's the thing, right? So the basic problems have not changed, right? I mean, we've been fighting a lot of these same problems for the whole time I've been doing software for over 20 years, right? Because ETL is not a new thing. We've been doing ETL forever. What changes over time are the tool sets. right? And so now it's still ETL. As we're still going to pull in ETL developers, although we won't call them that now. They're data engineers or some fancy word, right? But it's still right, ETL developers, and they're going to march through this ETL process. But it's going to be a lot simpler process. With the new tooling that we have, that's just, Data Factory is an incredibly powerful tool that lets you do and then do anything you want kind of in it. And then once you kind of hit the limits, you can always break out to Azure Functions to go do whatever you could possibly imagine to go get things done. Yeah. So we live in a time now where the tooling's just phenomenal, and it makes everybody's life so much easier.
So, okay, you mentioned Cosmos DB, you mentioned Data Lake. Of course, Azure, just a SQL database is there. And then you got Azure Synapse, that's kind of newish. So you got all these different ones. When you talk to your clients, they probably ask, hey, which one should we use? What are the categories? Can you break it down for us of what scenarios you might grab a different one of these data stores?
Right, because the answer is always it depends, right? Which it's the typical consultant answer, right? And so typically the things I have run into, and that's going to be the problem, right? And so I'll caveat right now, the problem is there is so much, and any given individual, me included, is almost never going to fully understand all of the different things. Like at Synapse, I haven't looked at yet. Right. So, but I have other people on the team who do know that. And so what you want to do is once we clearly understand what the problem sets are, then we collaborate internally and kind of figure out the right thing. So when you say, what are the categories? Right. So the categories I have run into, and this will be a very inadequate set, but the categories I have run into is you just need storage, right? So I have customer data, or I have order data, or whatever, and you can drop that into Cosmos DB or blob storage, depending on or table storage. I just need to have this thing, and I need to put it there, and that happens sometimes for a cloud migration. Like if I'm migrating an application, then we'll attach some sort of level of storage to it. If I want to start understanding data across a series of applications, now it's no longer I just have customers, but I have customers, and I have orders, and I have equipment, and I have maintenance schedules and all these other things. Now we're starting to aggregate data, and once you start aggregating data from systems, one, you need some place to store that data, which is where something like a data lake comes in. Right, because Data Lake lets you just pull a whole bunch of data in and store it the way it came in. So first step is let's
even
get
if it was just flat files.
Just whatever it is, just throw it up there, and that way now all your data is at least in one place. I mean, that's like a huge part of the battle right there, is just getting your data to one place. And then you start to use your ETL tools like Data Factory to start processing those and doing something with them. And then so typically what we'll do is you pull that data out, and then you can drop it into a data warehouse that'll let you do things over time, and you can kind of do some aggregation and stuff like that to start looking at it. And so for me personally, those are the categories I run into. I need data because I have an application that needs data, or I have a whole bunch of data and I don't know what to do with it, so help me figure it out. And so those are the two buckets that I typically run into.
And you mentioned Azure Data Warehouse. How different is that from the on-premise SQL Server Analysis Services?
Okay, so my experience with SQL Server Analysis Services is light. So actually, that's an interesting question that I do not know the answer to. And I don't know if it's a loaded question that now you can turn around and answer for me, because that would be awesome. I would love to know. But all I know is that, again, it's there's not a whole lot new, right? I mean, a data warehouse is a data warehouse. The tooling around Azure, the data warehouse in Azure is super nice, right? And it makes things easy. But yeah, I mean, I haven't used the on-prem stuff because in that realm I was more on the API side.
Gotcha. Well, I have looked at Synapse and advised a number of clients already on Synapse because it's new and shiny. It was announced at Microsoft Ignite with great fanfare. And it's like, ooh, maybe we need Synapse. And the first question is, have you checked out the Azure pricing calculator for it? And they're like, oh, maybe we don't need Azure Synapse. If you already are spending a lot of money on your own custom solution because your data is such high scale, such high throughput, then Azure Synapse will probably be really, really interesting. But if you're not there already and being crushed by your volume, then it's probably not your first choice.
Right, and a lot of times that's the struggle, right? My philosophy for my whole career has been start small and kind of evolve, right? Chances are you don't need the big fancy tooling yet. Now we hit clients that do, but a lot of times we'll have clients walk in the door and just exactly what you're talking about with Synapse and say, hey, I want to do this big fancy thing. And our response is, you really only need this. Like, let's focus on the smallest thing to solve your problem, and then kind of evolve from there as necessary.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting. All these low code and no code solutions that are popping up with Power Apps and Flow, and it seems, I would like to know your opinion that it used to be. When I say used to be, even for the last 2 decades that I have visibility to, you'd have a software system, which was an application, and then the database that went along with it, which was a system of record for certain data and record types. But the system of record was actually the database and then the transactions that were layered on top of it. But then the applications would get rewritten, every 10 years or so. But the data lives on longer.
Right.
And so in today's world, as long as that database likely is going to be most of your system of record, even if you start layering on some Power App screens or some other transactions on top of it or APIs and start wrapping it. Is that your experience as well?
Yeah. So in cloud migration, we have a phrase called data gravity, right? I mean, it's like data gets stuck where it's at, because if you've been in business for 20 years and you got 20 years worth of data, the first answer is not let's pull all 20 years worth of that data up into the cloud, right? That doesn't work. And so you have to start doing this layering and level and so I've seen a trend. So on the JavaScript, I was a Node guy for a long time. I still kind of am, and I've seen a trend more and more that is you have that database of record, that thing in the middle, and then you pull data out of that and you build little databases around it that service the application directly. And then you kind of push data back in, and that's where I'm starting to see companies have success pulling things up to the cloud. Is I don't need all my data in the cloud. I can set up a data factory or something that's going to pull the pieces I need up, run my application in the cloud, and then push the data back down to my system of record that's sitting down on the ground. And actually, that's where I get into a lot of GraphQL type conversations too, where I have a data of record. I've got a series of REST services that kind of wrap that data. And what I'm seeing more and more clients do is we layer a GraphQL API layer on top of that that'll just kind of orchestrate all of those REST services and data and clean it, like as a facade, if you will, to clean things up for your application that's sitting up in the cloud.
Yeah. So for a long time, there's been a classification of applications. You either had a system of record or a system of interaction. And the system of records move really slowly. They own all the data. Yep. And then the system of interaction is just a way to do something while accessing the data. Seems like in the cloud world, we still have that.
Oh, right. I mean, and I don't see how you get away from that, because we generate a lot of data, and for some reason, people like to hold on to their data forever. Whether they're ever going to use it or not doesn't matter. We are hoarders of data, and as we hoard data, you've got to make ways to simplify things in order to use them at an application level.
Awesome. Well, this is a lot of information. You mentioned all the different data services, Cosmo DB, Databricks, Data Factory, Data Lakes, just regular SQL. But if people want to kind of dig in and learn more, are there any go-to resources that you would recommend for sorting this out?
So I've got a few. So the first one is the docs. If you haven't spent some time on docs.microsoft.com, they've got some amazing tutorials and resources out there. So as I'm studying for certs, because that's a thing that we do now, I guess we've done it forever, but now for Azure certs and things like that, just the docs are phenomenal. You can set up sandboxes and you can do follow-alongs for free in the cloud. So that is a resource I always suggest going to. It's completely free. It lets you do hands-on stuff in the cloud. It's awesome. I also like to use Pluralsight, obviously, as a Pluralsight author. I'm not an Azure author, so I can promote other people's things. There's a lot of Azure content out there that's awesome if you happen to have a Pluralsight license. Cloud Guru is also a phenomenal. It's a direct competitor for Pluralsight, but Cloud Guru is focused specifically on cloud stuff, and there's a lot of content out there. But honestly, there is nothing that substitutes for just getting your hands in and doing it. You can get a free account on Azure, and there's all kinds of free services that are out there. Just play around with it. If you don't know something about a service, like I'm going to go play with Synapse, that's on my list of things I got to play with. Just go play with it and click around and see what you can do. That's usually the best way to understand something.
Awesome. Well, John, thanks for coming on the show and sharing with us today. There's a lot of great information, and I'm sure the listeners learned something today.
So thanks a lot for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And listeners, if you haven't checked out Kansas City Developer Conference, go to kcdc.info and check that out. And until next time, keep shipping.
You've been listening to the Azure DevOps Podcast, a show for developers and DevOps professionals shipping software using Microsoft technologies. Go to www.azuredevops.show for show notes and other episodes. On behalf of your host, Jeffrey Palermo, and our sponsors, thanks for listening, and may God bless you.